Obama is pretty good at taking both sides on every issue, but usually he breaks them up into different chapters or at least different pages. But this time he got a little sloppy, and so this time he's taken both sides within the same paragraph. And so he's talking about the other countries that had uprisings in the Arab Spring, which of course he's an idealist. He wants to do something to help the people, and but he was hamstrung, and he was hamstrung for two reasons. So he's talking about Syria and Bahrain. He says, my team and I spent hours wrestling with how the United States could influence events inside Syria and Bahrain. Our options were painfully limited. Again, Obama, he just doesn't have the power to change anything. Syria was a longtime adversary of the United States, historically allied with Russia and Iran, as well as the supporter of Hezbollah. And without the economic, military, or diplomatic leverage we'd had in Egypt, the official combinations of the Assad regime we made had no real effect, and Assad could count on Russia to veto any efforts and blah, blah, blah. That's true. The U.S. doesn't have leverage against Syria, and so it's going to be tough to do anything. And so, in that sense, his hands are clean. And then he says, with Bahrain, we had the opposite problem. And so again, he can't do anything, but it's for a different reason. It's the opposite problem. The country was a longtime U.S. ally and hosted the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet. The relationship allowed us to privately pressure Hamad. So again, lots of private pressure. You're not hearing about it, but don't worry. Obama's been pressuring these dictators all the time. They're still there, and they've been there for decades, but we've been privately pressuring and his ministers to partially answer the protesters' demand and to rein in the police violence. Still, Bahrain's ruling establishment viewed the protesters as an Iranian-influenced enemies who had to be contained. In concert with the Saudis and Emiratis, the Bahrain regime was going to force us to make a choice, and all were aware that when push came to shove, we couldn't afford to risk our strategic position in the Middle East by severing relations with three Gulf countries. And so Obama's like, listen, I want to help change everything. But some countries aren't our allies, like Syria. So we don't have the diplomatic, military, economic leverage that we need to get them to make a choice. But then there's other countries that are our allies. And so these countries, we can't do anything because we have the diplomatic, military, and economic connections with them that we can't risk. And so we want to help change the world. We just can't do it with countries that aren't our allies, and we also can't do it with countries that are our allies. But other than that, we're happy to help. And so we'll whisper things on the phone to their dictators and be like, can you please stop killing this many people in the streets? It really looks kind of bad. Yeah, this is in the same paragraph. And again, no comment on it from mainstream people, but he's like, he puts it right there. We can't do anything for anything if it undermines U.S. interests. And so essentially, we have no power in anything. Actually, you do have power, but you have to be willing to take on the U.S. interests, which are propping up these corporations and the military-industrial complex and the oil companies and the fundamental assumptions that this world order has been built upon. Obama isn't interested in that, and so he, by writing paragraphs like this, which portray him as a hopeless, tragic victim that wants to do his best but just can't in some type of Shakespearean play drama, then he can maintain his idealistic credentials while maintaining the world order and painting himself as somebody without the ability to do anything about it, when in reality he could.